Imagine if a legend in your industry gave you the advice and guidance. Think about that. We're going to speak with Harry Abrams and talk about his latest book as well, titled Let's Do Launch.
Yeah, I was selling talent for radio and television advertising for commercials to all kinds of different advertising agencies. And so I dealt with them on a regular basis. Creative directors, commercial producers of radio commercials, television commercials, etc.
Welcome, entrepreneur movers and shakers. Thanks for joining in with us. Today, I have a fascinating angle on growing our business. We're going to focus on turning your dream into reality. Now, I know I say that a lot, and we've discussed various parts of that over the years, but I think today we're going to hit it head on. We're going to look into the power of passion to turn that dream, your dream, into reality. Now, think about that for a moment. Is that what is the difference between succeeding and failing? And if the passion is not there and you're just told the word no yet again, do you just give up? Or is that passion strong enough to just keep going until success is reached? Now, I know it sounds like I'm writing another book, but really, what is success all about? Now, I am positive that passion is king in attaining success, and I have someone with me to help prove that point. In the world of Hollywood, you don't get to be called the word legendary for nothing. In the world of Hollywood, it's said that literally everybody stops texting and they pay serious attention to what this person says. Imagine if a legend in your industry gave you the advice and guidance. Think about that. We're going to speak with Harry Abrams and talk about his latest book as well, titled Let's Do Launch. And the subtitle is super important. It is A Hollywood Agent Dishes on How to Make Your Business and Career Take Off. Guys, this book is a class all in itself. It really is. And while we're at it, this is all about helping you and your friends move on your journey to success. We want to help you get very successful, and we're going to help turn you into an elite entrepreneur. Get ready to meet Harry. He's a legend on Hollywood. Everybody knows him. Some of the stars he worked for and or discovered are Jennifer Lopez, Liam Neeson, Jerry Seinfeld, William H. Macy, Jaclyn Smith, and many others whom we're going to bring up, some of them whom we're going to bring up in this interview. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm deep into reading this book, and right at the gate, the odds have been so against Harry in the business that I am really curious as to why he even continued in this business. I'm going to let him tell you more about that, and I'm thinking he can help us hone our passion to be more successful. Let's get into it, and of course, stop texting. Here we go. Hi, Harry. Welcome to the Tony DUrso Show.
How you doing there, Tony? I was saying, pronouncing the name DUrso, but DUrso, I like that a little bit better.
Molto bene. It's Italian. There's the American version is DUrso. The Italian version is DUrso. The Chicago version is Hey You.
Okay.
Harry, we're all looking forward to learning about the power of passion and your book, Let's Do Launch. And I'm knee deep in it, and I'm like, man, I just can't wait to get back into it. And here I am. It's like, which do I want to do now? Interview you or finish reading the book? The book is that good, guys. I'm really serious. I'm loving it. You did a good job with it. And for our audience who've not all read the book yet, let's start here. Harry, can you tell us, how did it all start for you? What's your backstory?
You're talking to me in Los Angeles, although I've run my business in Los Angeles and New York City at different times of my life. I wanted to get into the talent agency business very early on, coming out of college and then being in the military, being in the Army for a period of time. I came out of the Army and looking for a job, and I was originally a pre-med major at UCLA. My parents wanted me to be a doctor, a physician. But 2 years in, I had a particular incident that occurred while I was working at a hospital. It caused me to change my direction. And I changed it from pre-medicine or medicine to business. And the business that I was interested in was the entertainment business. That had been formed many, many years ago when I was a child. My mother got me involved with the entertainment business as a performer or as an actor, where she thought I would make a good actor, but after spending some weeks or months at it, I decided it was not for me, and so I got out of performing business, acting business. But I was always interested and intrigued with the entertainment industry as a whole, and specifically, I was interested in the behind-the-scenes activity that went on in building a company, a studio, a talent agency, a television network, a theatrical Broadway theater house, etc. I was always very interested in the theater, and so later on in my years when I came out of college, and after I'd spent a couple of years in business, graduated from UCLA, went into the military, came out of the military, I started looking for a job in the entertainment industry, but specifically on the business side of it. I had no interest in the artistic side. I'm not a writer, I'm not a director, I'm not a performer, I'm not a composer. I had none of those artistic talents. I wanted to be involved with the business side of it. Business side of it meant I talked to a lot of people, read a lot of books, and found out that the talent agency business was a terrific end of the business to start learning. And it was like going to school early on before you graduated from in business. And I learned, I heard that there were some talent agency programs. They had training programs. There were two specific talent agencies that had training programs at the time. This is 60 odd years ago. One was MCA, which stood for Music Corporation of America, and the other was the William Morris Agency. Those two companies had talent agency training programs, and I wanted to get into their training program. And one of the things that I learned in the business side of my career at UCLA was how to write a letter of inquiry. And I wrote a letter of inquiry to the two personnel directors in those days they were personnel directors. Today they call them human resource people. And I wrote a letter looking to try to get into their training program, asking for an interview. And they both responded because the letter obviously intrigued them, showed that I was seriously interested. And they both invited me in for interviews. Now, by the way, this was for a job in their training program. The pay was $40 a week, just to give you an idea. Not very lucrative. My parents thought I was crazy. They didn't know anything. What entertainment business you wanted into? What is that, for God's sake? And
they wanted you to be a doctor.
They wanted me to be a physician, right? So I was able to get the interviews at with both the personnel directors, and they said the next step in our interview process is that you have to meet 10 of our department heads, and you'll meet them at different times over the next few months. And they have the right of approval of people who come into our training program as well. This was quite a complicated, intricate process that they went through. And so I said, well, okay, I've got nothing but time on my hands, so let's go. So I then met with the 10 department heads at William Morris Agency and at MCA, Music Corporation of America. And I figured that when I got through, By the way, you could be rejected anywhere along the way by any of these 10 department heads. I was able to pass all the department heads, and I assumed when I got to that point, I would get a letter of offer to come to work for a job. And I got letters from both the personnel directors. Dear Harry, you've successfully passed all of our interview through the interview process. Your name is going to be put on a waiting list. There are a lot of people who precede you, and when your name gets to the top of the waiting list, we'll call you. Don't call us, we'll call you. I said, well, how long is that going to take? A week, 2 weeks, a month, 6 months, a year? We can't tell you, Harry. We have no idea. It just depends upon when you get to the top of the waiting list. In our training program, we have 6 people who come to work in the mail room. You start at the bottom in the number 6 position. You work your way up to the top of the mail room to the number 1 position. And then hopefully you've been exposed to all the agents within the company. Someone's going to ask for you to come to work in their department as an assistant or as a trainee in their department. That's the way it worked. And I said, I asked how long it's going to take. They said, we can't tell you. So just be patient, and we'll get to you. Well, I had no choice, obviously, at that point. Meanwhile, my parents would said, you want to go in the entertainment business? That's ridiculous. We know nothing about the entertainment business. But it's Hollywood. It's nothing we know about. We don't really recommend it. Well, I said, that's what I'm driven towards. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Question on that, but first I have to make a simple announcement here for the audience. We're talking about Let's Do Launch with Harry Abrams. Now that's launch, Launch, Harry Abrams, Abrams. That book is available at Amazon. I'm actually reading it. I'm knee deep in it right now. I'm telling you, it's friggin' amazing. And it's a course and a class for the entrepreneur to be successful. Let's Do Launch with Harry Abrams. Please go to Amazon and check that out. And Harry, back to you. And one thing you can weave into this little story is I'm thinking, all right, I understand you're applying to make $40 a week. I get that. And back then, if I think back on my dad in the 60s, he worked at a factory. I think he was making $75 a week. So I understand $40 is probably, and this is before the 70s so $40 was probably decent money or okay money, but you didn't do it for the money. Where I'm going at is you're trained to go into medical, but give us why. I mean, I still don't quite understand. Was it just, you didn't want to be successful. You didn't want to be a star. You wanted to be a talent agent. So I know it wasn't for the money. So your purpose and why, I want to hear that as part of this little intro of what you've done and who you are in Hollywood.
Well, I was always interested in business behind the scenes. I wanted to be behind the scenes. I didn't want to necessarily be up there on the firing line. And working with performers, artists was always intriguing to me and of interest to me. And so that's where I pointed my career towards. And what happened is, so I had this, they said, don't call us, we'll call you. I had no idea how long it was going to take. Meanwhile, my parents were pushing me and pressing me, Harry, for Christ's sake, get a job already. And so I had an uncle who was my mother's sister, was married to this gentleman who was a housewares buyer for the Thrifty drugstore chain. There's 80 odd stores up and down the state of California of Thrifty drug, and his job was he bought housewares, and housewares one of the items that he bought in housewares was a power lawnmower. And he introduced me to the man who manufactured power lawnmowers, who had a big factory in Richmond, Indiana. And I had studied business and production and manufacturing and marketing in my business education at UCLA. And so this man offered me a job I said, get a job. The guy offered me a job to come to work in this small rural farming town where he had a factory producing lawnmowers. About 150 workers in his factory. He worked out of New York City, which is where he sold, and he had salesmen all over the country. And my uncle introduced me to him, and the man took a liking to me and offered me a job to go to work in Richmond, Indiana, to leave Los Angeles and go to work at this power lawnmower company. Well, I took the job. I'd never been hardly outside of Los Angeles, with the exception of my work in the military, where I was stationed in San Antonio, Texas, at Fort Sam Houston. And I took this job because I'd never been to the Midwest, and I thought it would be an interesting experience. And I went to work at this manufacturing company where they manufactured lawnmowers. The pay was $125 a week, certainly more than $40 a week. And I worked there for maybe a year or two. I can't recall exactly when, waiting for my name to rise to the top of the list. I get this offer. Well, actually, I do remember how long. It was about 14, 15 months, or maybe 12 months into the year. And my mother got a letter from the William Morris agency. She called me to tell me. I said, well, open it, see what it has to say. And he opened it up. Dear Harry, your name has risen to the top of the list. You have 72 hours to accept the job in our training program. The pay is $40 a week. And I said, well, let me just think about that if you don't mind. I just want to think about it overnight. And I remember during my interview process with the 10 department heads, my perception of the caliber and the quality of the agents at the MCA was superior to those at the William Morris agency. So I took a calculated risk and I turned the job down, much to my parents' dismay. Before I did that, I called MCA to be sure that my name was still in consideration. Yes, it just hasn't risen to the top of the list. 3-4 months later, I got a call from MCA. Harry, your name has risen to the top of the list. You have 24 hours to accept the position. $40 a week is the pay in our training program. I said, I don't need 24 hours. When do I start? And he said, in a couple of weeks, whatever. And so I took that job for $40 a week. I called my employer, the man who had given me this job at the power lawnmower company. I called him in New York. I said, I'm giving you notice, Mr. Lober, his name was Maury Lober. I said, I'm going to have to leave. There's a job offer that's been posed to me back in Los Angeles in the entertainment industry, which is an industry I want to get into really badly. And he said, that's terrific. I said, what are they going to pay you? I said, $40 a week. He said, $40 a week? You're earning $125 a week right now. He said, he had grown very close to me over this year and a few months. He'd come to Richmond, Indiana frequently, and he was married, he had no children. He had no young guys like myself in the company. There were about 150 factory workers. And he said, don't make a move, don't accept the position. I'm flying into Richmond, Indiana tomorrow. I will go to dinner tomorrow night, and at least let's talk about it. He flew in, came to dinner with me. He said, they're offering you $40 a week. You're earning $125 a week. He says, I'll tell you what, I really like you. I think you've done a terrific job. I'd love you to stay on with the company, and I'm going to double your salary to $250 a week. And I said, Mr. Lober, it's very generous of you, but with all due respect, I really want to accept this job in entertainment. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to leave you. He then began to question my intelligence. He didn't know how smart I was. If I was turning a job, I was earning $40 a week. Or no, I was earning from him $125 a week. He was going to double it. I was getting it for $250 a week. I was turning the offer down. Anyway, the bottom line is I picked up and I left. And that was one of the best decisions I ever made in my life, obviously.
Absolutely amazing. Can we talk about some of the client? You went and you worked at the mailroom of MCA, which was one of the two production companies at the time, agent type companies. There was movies. They just did movies and films, or no, they did music.
They did everything.
Okay.
They had all kinds of departments or specialties in artists. They had performers, they had writers, they had musicians, they had dancers, they had playwrights, they had book writers, television writers, every aspect of writing. They had all kinds of performers, nightclub performers, ballet performers, etc. And I went to work at that company to work in some aspect of the agency. And I worked in the mailroom for about, I don't know, maybe a year, a little over a year. And I rose from the number 6 position up to the number 1 position. And finally, I was offered a job to move out of the training program, out of the training program, to go to work in a particular department as an assistant in the radio and television department, which had to do with television performers, it had to do with radio performers who were radio personalities, disc jockeys, people like that, newscasters, broadcast journalists, sportscasters. Also, they worked with advertising agencies and selling their talent on radio and television, advertising and commercials. And all of that was intriguing and interesting to me. And so I went into that department, daytime television MCs and hosts of game shows, quiz shows, audience participation shows. That was the specialty in that particular department. I wasn't dealing with motion picture actors or television actors or theater actors, etc., or writers or anyone, or musicians, musical composers, none of that. And I went into that department, and that's where I really began to flourish, working in that department. And I represented talent initially for the first several months in radio and television advertising, selling my talent to advertisers and to advertising agencies for television commercials or radio commercials or use of their voice on a television commercial, voiceovers on television. And I loved that work. I just was excited by it. I had now an opportunity to use my salesmanship, marketing talents as they were, and negotiate on behalf of a performer as to what
Can you tell us about some of the Can you tell us about some of the clientele you discovered? The story of how you met Jaclyn Smith. Did I say that right? Jaclyn Smith?
Yes.
Is absolutely amazing, and it shows. Well, I'm just going to let you take it. I mean, just what you did and how you discovered her and who she's become is all because of you and what you did.
Well, thank you. I'm still very close to her. She's still around and still active today. I found Jaclyn Smith in New York City in Central Park. I was selling talent for radio and television advertising for commercials. to all kinds of different advertising agencies. And so I dealt with them on a regular basis. Creative directors, the commercial producers of radio commercials, television commercials, etc. And so I had developed an eye for a talent, so to speak. And I was in Central Park with my wife and my two small children. Then they were two toddlers. One was about 3 or 4, and the other was about 2, a little over 2 years of age at the time. And we were there for a picnic on a weekend, and Jaclyn Smith had come to New York City to audition for New York City Ballet. She had come from Houston, Texas. She had an accent so thick you could cut it with a knife. And she had come to try to get, she worked with the Houston Ballet, or for the Houston Ballet, and she wanted to get onto in the New York City Ballet. And she had come there for an audition. She was staying with 8 or 10 other girls who had come at the same time. They were staying at the Barbizon Hotel in New York City, and they were all auditioning for New York City Ballet. They'd come from different cities. And so she was with her group of girls. I put on a dance show at Central Park for a half an hour to entertain whoever was willing to watch there. And I was in that audience together with my wife, my 2 small children, watching her. And when we went back to our picnic, my wife and my kids, and she and the other group of girls decided to take a break, have a soda, and they ended up not more than about 15 or 20 yards away from us on a particular patch of grass in Central Park. And my eldest son, who was then close to 4 years of age, was, as I say, a toddler, and he toddled over, left us, and went over to this group of girls. And I went, after about 5 or 10 minutes, I went over to rescue the girls from him. And this one girl had taken a liking to him. It was Jaclyn Smith. Actually, we gave her the name Jaclyn Smith when she got into the industry, but her real name is Ellen Smith. Anyway, she had taken a liking to him, and he was sitting on her lap and entertaining her, and I was struck by her beauty. I mean, she was exquisite looking. She was all of about 19, 20, 21 years of age, and I said to her, "Listen, you don't know me. My wife and my children are here, but I'm a talent agent, and I work in the area of radio and television advertising with commercials. I think that you would be a very good person, a talent that we could put into television commercials. So, and that could lead you then to acting and performing in motion pictures and television." And I said that I'm going to give you my card. If you don't make it into the New York City Ballet, call me and we'll try to get into business together. 2 weeks later, she called me and came in to see me. She had not made it into New York City Ballet, and she said, "I want to do some television commercials." And so I started her off, but I said, before I do that, you're going to have to go to a speech coach, or a diction coach, to get rid of that deep Southern accent. It's not going to work in television commercials. So she did that, and the first project that I sent her out on was for Breck hair products. It was with BBD&O Advertising, Martin, Durston, and Osborne, and they were the advertising agency for Breck shampoo, Breck hair coloring, any products of Breck.
By the way, I remember Brooke as a kid seeing the commercials. It's your fault.
Anyway, so she did
the audience.
She did the commercials. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
That's fine.
Anyway, she did the commercials, and she appeared in the other parts of their advertising on billboards, magazines, newspapers, direct mail, point of sale advertising when you went into a drugstore looking at different products. They had a big photograph of her, and she became the Breck girl, so to speak, for about a year or two, and that kind of launched her career. And she loved doing the commercials. She did a great job. Her southern accent was gone, and it was about 2 or 3 years later that Aaron Spelling, who was a very famous and well-known producer of television series in Hollywood, said and was producing a pilot of a new pilot, an hour show called Charlie's Angels. And he said to his casting director, "I want to see that Breck girl." And they tracked her down. They called and asked to see Jacqueline come in. She came in. I had also sent her along to acting coaching or acting classes, etc. And she ended up getting the job on Charlie's Angels. And the rest is history, as they say. That tells that story.
In the 60s, it was huge.
It was huge. And she still works. She now works for, I don't represent her any longer. I actually sold my agency about 5 or 6 years ago. But she now works for Kmart. She's a spokesperson image on behalf of anything to do with Kmart. But she's still gorgeous, exquisite looking, even in her 60s, needless to say.
Great person.
So that's my story about discovering Jaclyn Smith.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. And I'd like to ask about another client, you called them clients, we call them stars or celebrities, that you discovered or helped create because of your passion and how you just, I can see it through your book. You wanted something. It didn't matter if there was doors closed or you couldn't do it or if you were told no. Your passion was so strong, you just found a way. So I'd like to kind of hear of where you've discovered somebody. You've discovered so many big names. I'd love to hear another one that you've discovered and how that passion to success helped carry you through.
Well, Jennifer Lopez is a good example of that. I found Jennifer Lopez on a television show called In Living Color. It was on in those days. Keenan Ivory Wayans was the host of it. It was an hour show. And we had another client of ours at the time who was appearing regularly on the show. I forgot what his or her name was. And I would go to the show every week to support, be there for our client. And our commercial department said to me, "Harry, we're looking for an attractive Latin girl who speaks Spanish. Keep your eyes and ears open for that." Well, Jennifer Lopez was on that show as a fly girl, is what they called her in those days. That meant she was a dancer, and she danced on the show. And I went to the show regularly every week to look after, support our other client. And I approached her and said, "We're looking for someone like yourself. Would you come in to meet with myself and the rest of the staff?" And she did. And we took her on for representation. And I was her agent. I looked after her. We put her to work on a television series. She didn't do any commercials, but she did a television pilot that went into the series. It was called South of Harlem, a half-hour sitcom or something like that. And She was on the show as a series regular. I sent her to acting classes and acting school, and she did a terrific job. And that was one of her first acting jobs that put her on the map. Then she went from that to she ended up in a featured picture with Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes, where she played a subway token girl, the name of which I can't recall at the moment. But she started working in motion pictures, and the rest was, as I say, was history. We represented her for about 2 or 3 years until she became so big and important and in demand that competitors, other talent agencies, would steal our clients away. We would develop them and build them, and then when they got big enough, the William Morris Agency or other agencies would come after our clientele. And they stole her away after a few years. But she was on her way. And she still remembers all of that very vividly. And I don't have occasion to see her or talk to her today. Her life is complicated as it is, as you may read about her in the press now and then. But she's become a huge star. And I do take credit for finding her and developing her, as I do for Jaclyn Smith. That was another person I was involved with. Another person was Liam Neeson. I don't know whether you want to hear about Liam Neeson.
Love him, yes.
He was an actor that I worked in Los Angeles, and then I moved to New York to open up a New York branch of our agency. And I was then much closer to London, so I found myself going to London 3 or 4 times a year, primarily to go to the theater in London. I love the theater. I'm very passionate about the theater. And I established a rapport and relationships with talent agents who lived in London. In London, for the most part, even today, they're one-person shops. They're not large companies like or many different employees, as they are in the United States. They're one-person shops, and there's one agent. So I would establish relationships with them because they all wanted their clients to leave the United Kingdom and move to Hollywood, move to Los Angeles, or to move to New York. And so they were delighted that a person like me would come to see them and develop relationships with them. And so whenever they found a talent that they felt should move beyond the United Kingdom and move to the States, they would tell me about it. And I would go there regularly to ask them. And this gentleman, he was by himself. He had a sole agency. He had several clients. One of them was Liam Neeson. The gentleman's name was Norman Boyack, Boyack. And Norman liked me. We got along well together. And he said, I have this young talent who's unknown. His name is Liam Neeson. He's just done a feature film, an independent feature film. It's not a big film. He's got a lead role in it. He plays a priest at a boys' reform school. And I'd like you to see the film, see what you think. And he set up a screening for me, just for me. And I went to the small little studio. The projectionist was on the other side of the screen. And I couldn't see projectionist. I watched the movie. I thought he was enormously talented. He was handsome. He was attractive. He had a great presence on screen. And he was young. And when the film was over, I got up to go back to see the projectionist. The projectionist opened the door behind where he was working, and he walked out. And with him was Liam Neeson. Liam Neeson had sat in with the projectionist just to see my reaction and how I felt about it. And I introduced myself to him, told him how I thought he was terrific, and I said, I'd like to represent you in the United States. And he said, I'd love to come to the United States, but I can't work there. I'm an alien. The Immigration and Naturalization Service is not going to allow me to work there. I said, I will sponsor you. And Abrams Artists will sponsor you to come to work in the United States. And that way, the INS, the Immigration and Naturalization Service, will allow you to work in the States. He's been ever so grateful for that moment in time. And we took him on and then moved his career along quite rapidly. He developed into a terrific actor. And he's still around today, of course, working as a character actor, so to speak. So that's my Liam Neeson story. I can go on with these stories.
Well, I'm sure there's a story here, but I'm curious. You've had so much success in Hollywood. I hope the audience really understands the success that you've attained is astronomical. But I want to ask you an important question, which I haven't finished your whole book, so I don't know the answer yet. So I'm very curious. Harry, what's the worst thing that happened to you in this business? What's your biggest failure that you had?
Well, the biggest failure would be, I had many disappointments, and the disappointments would consist primarily of those talents that we would develop and build, and then they would be romanced away from us by the larger agency. They would come and take them away. Those were, I wouldn't call them failures, but those were disappointing times in my life.
Just a quick pause on that. You had a contract, but you've said this before with Jennifer Lopez as well. The person would get so big, another agency would take them. But wasn't there a contract, or
yes,
they weren't iron?
The contracts were under the union or under the guilds, Screen Actors Guild. When you represented someone initially, you represented them for a year, and if you had done a good job, you would ask them to re-sign the contract for 3 years, and hopefully they would go along with it. But frequently they could leave you in the middle of a contract, and even though they left you, you would have your attorney or your lawyer pursue them, and whoever the new agency that would take them on would have to continue to pay us, the original agent, the 10% agency commission for the period of time of what your contract was still running. So if they took them from you in the first year at 9 months, you'd have another 3 months. Or if they took them from you at half or 2 years, and they still had another year to go on their contract, the new agency would have to pay the 10% agency commission. That's the way the union regulations worked for agents. And so those were some of my disappointments on a regular basis. I don't think I had any huge failures that I can recall. I had a lot of successes.
Yes, you did. And by the way, there are 2 things that we have in common so far. Just 2. One, I was a paper route boy for 10 years. As a child, you were a paper route boy too. You were much more entrepreneurial than I, because you were able to collect the receipts, collect and get the payment for the paper. Me, I worked for the Chicago Sun-Times and the Chicago Tribune, and a third paper, I forget who, the American. And the way they were set up, we didn't collect the funds, so I was never able to go further than just deliver. So that was point number 1. Point 2, which I have a question on, is I see you have 6 children, and congratulations on that. I'm from a family of 6 kids. And here, I know how crazy it can be with a bunch of kids running around. And here you are going between New York and Los Angeles. You have multiple kids. I'm really curious. How did you balance work and family?
Well, it was difficult, needless to say. I was I've been married 3 times. I'm married to my third wife and last wife. As a matter of fact, I don't refer to her any time as my third wife. I call her my last wife. We've been together now 47 years, and we have 2 daughters together. But it was a struggle. It was difficult. My wife would come with me. I'd go between Los Angeles and New York. I worked long hours, but I devoted a lot of time to my family in the evening and on weekends. It was a difficult balance, let's put it that way. But I was able to be able to balance it. I have paid attention to my wife and my children, and was successful in looking after them. So I was able to balance it. But it was a struggle, no question about it. And you made mention of the newspaper business. That was originally when I was 10 or 11, 12 years old. I had a paper route. I delivered on my bicycle because my father couldn't pay me an allowance, so I had to earn money myself. And then I moved from a paper route to a paper corner where I sold newspapers in the afternoon on a paper corner. When cars would come to a red light, a stoplight, I would walk out between the cars for the 30 seconds that the red light was on and sell newspapers. The newspapers in those days I sold were the Los Angeles Daily Mirror and also the Los Angeles Herald Express. Those were the 2 newspapers. And I was, anyway, that's a totally different story because that'll take too long to explain all.
Well, I know what that's like. And in Chicago, it was 7 days a week, rain, wind, snow, minus 100 degrees below zero with the wind chill factor off of Lakeshore Drive. It just doesn't matter. You just have to deliver it. So I totally understand that toil to set up the entrepreneurial spirit. And again, to the audience, this is Harry Abrams, Abrams. We're talking about his book called Let's Do Launch, Launch. Please go to Amazon, get it. It's the kind of read that once you get into it, you just really can't stop reading it. And I'm like, here, I have to do this interview with Harry, but I would rather read his book, almost. Not trying to be insulting, just it's my Italian humor. Really, it's just that good. And for the business person, for the entrepreneur, it has such good nuggets of information. In fact, Harry, let me just kind of squeeze the time. If you had any advice to give to today's entrepreneur, business person, aspiring, career-minded person, what would you say to them, Harry?
Well, the book, by the way, is it's called Let's Do Launch. It's about the launching of a career, of a business career. It's actually 2 sides: the launching of a business career and it's the launching of a career for a performer, for an acting career. And it's about 20 chapters, and it was the inspiration for the book was actually I run into people a lot in my career who had made other choices for career paths coming out of college, or either with a master's degree or a business or undergraduate degree, and they had made choices for a career path, and they'd been practicing their career choice for 3, 4, or 5 years, and they were unhappy with their career choice. I don't know whether you encounter people like that, but I would encounter people, I wouldn't say frequently, but periodically, and they ask me, how do I get in the entertainment business? I want to get in the entertainment industry. But here I am, I'm a lawyer, I'm an attorney, I'm an investment banker, I'm working as a professor, I'm doing something else. And felt that I would suggest to them, and that was the inspiration for writing the book. This book will tell you how to let's do launching of a career, step by step for the 20 chapters, how to build a career for yourself, albeit that it's a business career in the entertainment industry specifically. And that book that was the inspiration for writing the book, but it has another side to it, which is it's also an excellent book for the launching of a career for a performer, for an actor, how they can build their career step by step, uh, and, and launching a career. I'm very,
Harry, I want to thank you. Pardon?
I'm very proud of the book.
It's great. I love it. I look forward to finishing it. I want to thank you one more time. Thank you so much for this advice, for telling us your stories, telling us, uh, just taking us back to the days of Hollywood when it all started for a lot of actors, and all the information you gave and the advice you're giving now. I just want to thank you so much. It was so good. Thank you, Harry.
Well, it's my pleasure. I really enjoyed speaking with you, Tony, and look forward to hopefully results of people who listen to your show and maybe buy the book.
Me too. It'll be good. I sure hope so too. And I just want to say here is a special thank you for those that listen to the end. And would you please do me a favor? Would you share this with a few friends to help them too? All right. Let's use this and let's help you move on your journey to success. Thanks, and remember, just take action. Success awaits those who persevere and remain steadfast despite the odds. Sow good seeds, do good deeds, and join me on the next show with the Tony DUrso Show. Thank you so much.